So I appreciate you coming on today and being a part of this. Some of you might have seen the advertisement about this call. And this call is going to be about a little different presentation for me that I've ever done. I've never done this one. And it's going to be a little different than what you've heard out there. I want you to, though, to be prepared to take notes. And one of the things, you know, we always have this first slide up, no one left behind. And we just didn't put that up there as cliche or anything. We really want everyone to be successful in Zango and in their business. And, you know, as I think back on building Zango, let me make sure this next slide came up. Did this come up, Carol? Okay, thank you. You know, I saw a statistic this morning as I was looking at Facebook just for a moment. I didn't go in and read about it, all the specifics about it, but it made a statement about 95% of Americans are not happy with their job or with their life or what they're doing. And this training could change your life forever. And I want, you know, maybe there's people that have heard different things on how to build and what to do, but I want you to be patient. I want you to have an open mind about what I'm going to teach today, okay? I want you to take notes about it. And the reason I want you to take notes is to be able to transfer this information to other people, to teach it to other people. Because maybe you're not quite ready for what I'm going to teach. I don't know. You might be. You might say, you know what, this is what I needed. This is what I needed to hear. And, you know, as I think back on my network marketing career and before being able to stop work, folks, this is something I did, and I didn't even know what I was doing. And this training is pretty close to what I did a little over 13 years ago. And so as I go through it, just keep an open mind, take notes, and review them. Review this recording if you need to. I'll try to get it edited up so the front end's out of here so that it's not there. But we really want you to think about the training. Don't just dismiss it, okay? I really want you to think about it today and over the next week. You know, maybe next month, maybe 3 months down the road, maybe 6 months down the road. This was going to, you know, you're going to go, you know what? I remember what Tom said in that training, and I'm ready to do it. This recruiting 20 in 30 days is a huge thing, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about some different things. We're going to talk about the why, okay? We're going to talk, why would you do this? You know, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what it's going to take to do it, okay? And we're going to talk, of course, how to do it, okay? So we're going to talk about all those things today. We're not going to go on real long. You know, this is not new information, okay? This isn't something I made up or came up with. This is information taught by other leaders that have been in the industry for multiple years, you know, decades, basically. And what they found is if they do this 20 and 30 days, that, you know, they've provided themselves with a 6-figure income per year. And you know what? I know that, you know, most of you, all of you, didn't get in this business just to make a few dollars. I hope you didn't. If you're on this call, you probably are on this call to really make some significant income, not just to, you know, make a few dollars or pay for your product, but you want to learn, you want to absorb whatever's, you know, being taught. And so this is going to be maybe a little hard truth today, okay? I know over this year I've been looking at myself. You know, I always look at myself before I train something or talk about something, and you know, I had to ask myself, who am I? You know, and what am I doing here? Who am I and what am I doing here? Maybe that's a few questions you need to ask yourself. And you know, we're looking to make this Zango better, you know, this industry better. And I'm hoping that this will empower you. And I want to tell you a little bit about my own story, very briefly, okay? But when I think about back to a little over 13 years ago, working full-time, a lot of hours, you know, 8 to 10 to 11, 12, depending on the time of year, working a lot of hours, a lot of time, not just 5 days a week, but 6 days a week. But at that juncture in my life, and I'll just say I was right at 50 years old, I needed a huge change in my life. And I told my sponsor, I'll do whatever you tell me to do as long as it's legal, moral, and ethical. I will do exactly. And you know, for somebody at 50 years old to say that and mean it and act on it, and that's actually what I did. And my sponsor said, you know, make a list, get on the phone, and start calling. And as you get people, you know, interested, bring them on the phone with me. And that's what we did. And I'm not going to say how many calls I made a day after work. I've said that a few times and sort of blown people out of the water. But I made a lot of calls. And later on in this presentation, we're going to talk about how many hours if you're full-time and how many hours if you're part-time. But think about this, and we're going to talk about, you know, how this is done, why and what. But I want you to just keep an open mind and take some good notes. Now I want to talk about a few myths here. You know, like I said, if you're on this call, you're looking to you're looking to make some money. Let's just agree with that, okay? And there is some myths out there, and we've all heard them. And honestly, I believed them for a lot of years in my marketing industry. Okay, I really did. And so these might blow you away a little bit, but just write them down and think about it. Okay. Here's the first one: slow and steady. You know. It doesn't really get you to where you want to be. And I'm going to talk about some math later on, you know, if you do this fast or you do this slow, there's a huge difference in how you do it. And so we're going to talk about that. And, you know, we're going to talk about, you know, that slow and steady does not necessarily win, okay? But if you prepare yourself in the right fashion, you will win. And that's what we want. That's what we ultimately want. But honestly, I was never told this information. I was told, make a list, get on the phone, do 3 ways, you know, build. But I did that 13 years ago, and because of that, some huge changes happened in our life. And we'll get into that in a little bit here. But honestly, you know, a lot of people talk about, well, just, you know, one person a month. And, you know, it looks good, but it doesn't get you to where it looks good on paper, but that's about it. You know, it's going to starve you to death if you do that. And we're going to do that a little bit different, okay? So the second myth is, well, let me give one more example. Well, let me go through the next slide, okay? Just don't quit. This is another thing we've all heard out there, and you know, it's not a problem to buy product, to bring some people in. I'm not saying that's not the way to build. I'm just saying if you want to make some money, some serious money. Just don't quit is not enough, okay? We want to teach you just a little bit of difference here. Now, there's an example I want to talk about. You know, we've all been on airplanes. I believe probably 99% of us have been on airplanes. There might be that 1% that just doesn't fly out there, but when they, you know, taxi and get on the end of the runway before they take off, you know, if they only put 20% power, if they only notched it up to 20%, we'd get rolling. We'd be rolling down the runway, but that's about as far as we'd get. We wouldn't get off the ground. And, you know, even 40, 60, 80% of power isn't going to get us off the runway, is it, folks? And so we need that burst of energy. So we have to get that plane off the ground. What's it going to take? It takes 100%. You know, once you get the plane in the air, the pilot doesn't have to keep it at 100%. You felt him sort of power down a little bit, and the plane drops a little bit maybe, but then you get leveled out, and then you're on cruise control for a while. And, you know, that's basically what we've done, you know, worked hard. And so what it does is it requires this burst of energy. Recruiting 20 in 30 days requires a massive burst of energy. Okay, so we're gonna move on through these slides. There's a number of them. What I'd like you to write down is these next sentences that are going to come up, and I want you to think about figures. Okay, I want you to think about, you know, what would your answers be. Okay, I've already written my answers. I know what the answer is. Okay, but I want you to write down. A lot of people only look at this front one. You know, they don't see past the upfront commissions. Okay, so write that down, upfront commissions. What would that amount be to you in the first 30 days if you brought in 20 people? You know, Zango pays out 15% and 25%. What would that be to you? 15% for customers, 25% on first order of distributors, new distributors that are brought in. So what would that be? You know, if you brought 20 people in, what's the average out there? It's a little over $200 a month. What would that add up to if you brought 20 people in 1 month at 25? And you know what? People are going to come in as customers also. So you're going to have some 15%ers there, and that's 15% every month after month after month. So that's the first question I want to ask you to write down. And then other bonuses. You know, we've got a brand new Power Up promotion that's going on here in the U.S. I'm sorry it isn't out of country, but it is in the U.S. It's, you know, they're paying $300 to $750, and you know, for those Power Up packs that are being promoted right now. What would that be if you, holy cow, what would that be right there if you brought 20 in divided by 3? Let's see, that's about, you know, gosh, a couple $1,000 right there. And that doesn't include the 15 or the 25%. That's on top of that. So write that down. You know what I'm trying to do is get you to look at the bigger picture here, beyond just the first weekly or monthly commissions. Okay, and so we'll go to the next question. And this has to do with what would it look like 12 months down the road. You know, a lot of people, their goal is Premier in 12 months. Maybe you've been at 1K for 12 months or 12 years. It doesn't matter. This is your chance to make a change. Okay, a six-figure income is possible at Premier. The average Premier makes about $10,000 a month. So would you be at 6 figures if you did Premier in 12 months? Absolutely. So that's the next question. Next question is, what about lifetime? What would you make in a lifetime of income coming up? You know, would you make it to multi-million-dollar club? Carol and I did. And, you know, so I still wonder sometimes, how'd we do that? But we had that big burst of energy when we first come in. And this is what I'm looking at, you know, not just that one burst of energy, but doing it again and again and again. And I've got some figures here later on about other bursts of energy. Rank advancement. You know, Zengo's got a great rank advancement program. I think if you max it out, you're looking at another $180,000. You know, I think at the other speeds of rank advancement, at least is half that or more. So what would that be to you? How would that help you recruiting 20 in 30 days? Okay, and then example to others. You know, I think about trips. The example to your group. You know, yeah, we have the paradise trips, but on top of that, Carol and I love to travel. Where would you go? You know, would you go to Europe, Australia, Bora Bora? Where would you go? What would that cost you? You know, but think of the things you could do. So what would that bring you? What would the example be of your group? How many more people would they bring in? Okay. Next, reputation. That could be priceless. You know, gosh, I think back 13, 14 years ago, I had done the same basic trade for 30 years, the first 30 years that Carol and I were married. And I had a couple business partners, and they did some things while I was gone for 60 days doing a project in another state. They did some things where I had my initial business at over those 60 days that absolutely ruined my reputation in that industry where I was at. It was sad. But what could recruiting 20 in 30 days do to your reputation? Do you think the company would look at you totally different? Absolutely. They'd be going, oh my gosh, what did they do? How did they bring these 20 in? What's happening out there? They'd want to know. And then number 8, the total of all those, the total of those 7, what would that be to you? It would absolutely be a total life change. I can guarantee that, because Carol and I aren't the same people we were 13 years ago. We're absolutely not, and I'm happy to say that. Do you want a life change? You know, at the beginning of this call, I talked about 95% of Americans aren't happy with their job, with their life. Would this 20 in 30 days, could that turn your life around completely? Okay, we're going to move on here. So, recruiting 20 in 30 days, success, love, speed. And that's what this is all about, folks. This is about creating some massive speed and massive success to grow your business. And we're gonna talk about some other examples here, okay? 95% of the six-figure earners, and this is not my figures. These are figures that I've gathered from other top leaders throughout my career and other leaders' career. 95% of the six-figure yearly earners have done some type of burst of energy, okay? And here's the next slide. If they're a seven-figure earners, they've done this multiple times. They realize the importance of it, and they did it multiple times. I'm sure that, you know, if I would have figured this out a little earlier, I probably would have done it again. But sometimes we get on cruise control and we don't do what we need to do, and we operate. We don't go out there and find a whole new group, and that's what we're encouraging to do, okay? So here's the numbers. So out of the 20, here's what happens. 12 do something. They do more than just buy product, okay? They're out there, they're looking for people. Maybe they recruit their family and some of their friends. Maybe they go on a little bit further. Sadly, 8 just disappear. They missing in action, or something happens to them. You just can't get a hold of them, and they disappear. And that's okay, because at one point they were in, okay? 8 out of the 12 within 90 days look like they're going to be leaders. And it's always surprising, folks. You never know who that's going to be. You know, folks, if Carol and I had all the people that said they're going to be our next premier, we would be X1s, okay? But that's why the surprise happens. So 8 out of the 12 within the 90 days will look like they're going to be leaders. 4 of those within 1 year are solid builders with 90% of the volume, okay? And 1 out of those 4 has probably just about 50% of the volume that you've got. And then 2 in 5 years are major leaders themselves, okay? I hope this is sort of getting you excited here of what can happen if you make a decision. We're going to talk about how this is done and what to do in just a few minutes here, okay? So if you did, well, I think I missed a slide here, dear. Let me see. Okay. If you did 1 a month for 20 months, here's the figures. We were here, okay. So this is doing 20 in 30 days, and this is doing 1 a month for 20 months. This is the figures, and this is pretty right on, okay. 8 do something. 4 are maybe still building in 90 days. 1 maybe 1 year later, and it's basically 0 5 years later. That's if you did 1 a month for 20 months and had 20 people.
You were slow and steady.
Yeah, slow and steady. That's what's just going to happen out there. What do you want? Do you want something like this, where you have 2 major builders in 5 years down the road, or do you want 0? That's the reality of this. I know this can be a little tough on people that are building slow and steady, but don't dismiss this. Don't say, Tom, I'm not going to do it that way. Think about this, and maybe at some point you're gonna change what's going on. So next section is story. Why you're doing this. Is this important to you? Do you want to go big? Do you want to help other people? Do you want to help them, you yourself have financial freedom? What do you want to do? When I think about myself, I didn't have the skills, a little over a decade ago. Didn't have what it took, but I learned those skills. And so you're going to tell those stories of why you were doing this. I want to go big, or I want to go home. I'm looking for 20 people. Do you want to come along with me? And here's the thing about, you're going to pick the 30 days. This isn't about, it's almost the end of August, we're going to start, it's almost the end of July, we're going to start in August, okay? You might pick your 30 days You know, a lot of people, you know, they go Christmas. That December would be sort of a crazy month to pick your 30 days. So, you know, you got to look at your calendar. You got to look at what's happening and pick your 30 days and decide on it. Maybe it'll be a month or two down the road. Maybe it'll be 6 months down the road. Maybe it'll be next year. That's okay. But pick 30 days that you're going to do it. And what we're going to do now is talk about preparation. And why isn't the slide changing? Because, there we go. We're going to talk about the preparation for recruiting 20 and 30 days. What's your level of commitment? Are you going to go 3 days or 3 weeks and decide this isn't working and flake out? Are you going to, you know, question yourself till you can't sleep at night? Or are you just going to make that level of commitment and do it? And I already said something about clearing your calendar. You've got to clear your calendar for the month, for the 30 days. You can't have distractions. I look at my calendar, and it seems like, gosh, every month we're going somewhere, or, you know, having a wedding at the house, or we're having this, or we're having that. Well, it's important for everyone that makes this commitment to clear your calendar. And I look at my calendar, and I've got to do the same thing. We all have to do it. What are you going to sacrifice? Maybe you're going to have to sacrifice some TV time, hobbies that you love to do, sports that you love to do. You know, you're going to have to negotiate with your family. This is a huge one. A lot of people have children, or maybe they have a negative spouse that, you know, has not been too happy with the level of production. They're going, you know what, we spend money every month on product, and, you know, we don't make half of what you spend, and this has been going on for years. Well, maybe you're going to have to negotiate with that spouse and say, look, I know that I haven't been doing what's necessary, but I'm asking you to give me these 30 days to turn this around, to recruit these 20 in the next 30 days so that we can have the trips, we can have, our children can have the education, you can have the vehicle you want. Are you willing to give me these 30 days? And this all, you know, this is your level of commitment. If you're going to ask those things, you've got to do it. You've got to eliminate distractions. You know, gosh, I'm surprised at how much I'm distracted. I'm one of those people, when I look at my cell phone, if I have numbers by any of the apps, I have to go clear them all off, you know. And how much time does that take every day? It eats away at our time. You know, our jobs can eat away at our time, you know, but you're going to have to eliminate distractions. Okay, I'm not saying you got to eliminate your job here. I'm just going to say you got, you know, when you're at work, you do your work. Don't do your business building at work. That's not fair to them. Okay. Number 6, your existing group. If you have an existing group, you know, just like when you're at home, you pick up the phone to make a call, and the kids start yelling, and the dog starts barking, and, you know, the fire alarm goes off from the smoke, and there's all kinds of things that happen. Existing groups, they ask for help. You know, they're going to want, hey, can you come over here and do a meeting? I need a 3-way. You know, tell them, look, existing group, 30 days, I'm not available. As soon as this is over, I am available. We'll do all the things and more that I was doing before. But for 30 days, you're on your own. You've got to, you know, if you got an existing group, you need to do that with them. And you need a fresh list of people to call. You've got to have some people. You know, a lot of us, you know, talk to people that aren't qualified. Let's just put it that way. We need a fresh list of people to call. And we'll talk about the numbers here in just a few minutes. And then you got to sharpen your skills, your inviting skills. And this doesn't take, you know, a year. Well, I'm not too good at inviting, so I'll wait a year until I'm a little better. It doesn't take that. You know, the person I learned this from said, you know what, go find somebody to do some, you know, 3-ways with, or some calling with, and you know, make it challenging and hone your inviting skills. This can take one day to do this. I know that seems like I can't do that in one day, and I know what I had to go through to change that inviting skills. It was huge. It wasn't that I didn't know it. I was fearful. And you got to get past that fear. And that's why this is so important. The speed that you need will help you get past those fears. It'll help you get past those no's that you're going to get when you're calling. It'll help in so many ways. You'll accelerate your skills so fast. You'll look back and you'll go, oh my gosh, I'm not the same person I was. So hope you've written down all those. I'm going to change that slide. Okay, here's some of the math. How many people join? Okay, about 2 out of 10. That's just normal. Maybe it's 1 or 1.5, maybe up to 2.5 or 3 people. But the average out there is about 2 out of 10, about 20%. And then how many presentations? And these aren't, you know, particularly one-on-one. These might be phone calls or, you know, in-home presentations or meetings or something like that. But how many presentations? Well, you'd have to do about 100. Well, you only got 30 days here, so you're looking at a lot of work in 30 days, okay? Appointments, how many appointments would you have to schedule? About 125. And then how many calls would it take to get those 125 appointments? Maybe you'd have 25 no-shows. So you'd have to do about 300 calls, okay? And then list, your fresh list of about 500 people. Now, the next slide you're going to be a little surprised with, okay? We just looked at this. I hope you've had a chance to jot these figures down quickly and write this out. I'll wait just another minute, but I'll go to my next page of notes here while you're writing those things down. So that's sort of the average in our industry that's out there, okay? I'm going to go to the next slide now. Here's what I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you that example in the previous slide is based on 20 people over 20 months. That's the figures you would have to do if you were doing it slowly, you know. But if you're doing it faster, it's going to look a little different, and the next slide will show that here. But that's what would happen if you're doing it 20 people over 20 months, okay? Now, here's the nice part of it. That 20% changes to 30 to 40%. Wouldn't you rather have 3 to 4 out of 10 every time? With that excitement, with that momentum that's going on in that 30 days? You know, we talked about originally we had 100 presentations. Wouldn't it be easier to do 60 to 70 rather than 100 over 20 months? Remember those figures earlier that we talked about on retention? You know, wouldn't you rather have people stay in and become builders? You know what happens when people come in slowly, that one person a month sort of feels like an orphan, and they don't get plugged in right. They don't feel that excitement. They don't feel that momentum that's happening. Wouldn't you rather have 90 appointments rather than 125? Gosh, look at the calls. half the calls to make this happen. This is what can happen if you're doing 20 in 30 days. And yes, it is a huge, huge commitment. But I know you can do it. And, you know, if you have questions about it, let's talk about that, okay? Let me move on here. Ooh, here's a tough one. Ouch. I told you we were going to talk about this a few minutes ago. Full-time networker, 16 hours a day. Hey, folks, I've worked 16 hours a day, and I know what that feels like. I've worked longer than that. Started at 5 a.m. and not gotten off till 1 or 2. And you know what? I was a lot younger then and working hard, laboring all day long, doing HVAC out in the heat in Phoenix, Arizona. I know what 16 hours a day feels like. I'd rather be at home making calls, doing what's necessary 16 hours a day from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And, you know, we can come across the country, we can go around the world. You know, so 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. really fits in. If you're part-time, we're still going to ask you to do 8 hours daily. And we're going to show you in just a minute how to fit that in, okay, and 16 hours on Saturdays. This is part of the clearing your counter, the negotiating with your family. I'm not talking about Sundays here. This is only 6 days a week. You got to have that day for yourself. You got to relax. You got to, you know, if you go to church, you got to be there. But this is to do this 20 and 30 days. You've got to make a huge commitment. And so, you know, we're going to teach you where to find those. You know, 8 hours after you get done working 8 hours, it might be a little tough. But we're going to show you how to fit that in some other spots here in just a moment, okay? All right. Here's what the 30 days looks like. First 10 days. Okay, we're going to break this down into 10-day blocks. You're going to be contacting and inviting and doing presentations. You know, if you're part-time, you know, and I'm saying don't build your Zango business on your work time. Do it on your drive time, your break time, your lunch time. Go have lunch with a prospect. Do it in the evenings. That's your best time to do calls. We all do that. Do it on the weekend. You know, that Saturday is a great day to make calls. Make the phone your friend. This was a huge area for myself. I hated the phone. I don't anymore. I love to be on the phone. Keep telling if you hate the phone, tell yourself, I love the phone. Look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that. You got to change that attitude about getting on the phone. You got to change that attitude about people telling you no. I remember mine. I would get told no, and I couldn't get back on the phone for a day or two. You've got to learn to get over that. You've got to have your tools handy. You got to have time for one-on-ones and two-on-ones. What I mean that is maybe an upline going with you on a presentation or being on a call with you, a three-way call with you. There's webinars that you can bring people to. Skype calls. We do Skype calls a lot. They're awesome to be on. Conference calls. There's lots of conference calls that go on every week to bring people on. There's blitz calling. I'll talk about that more in a minute. And then there's live events, meetings that you can take people to. The blitz calling is sort of fun. Some of the people that, you know, you start calling and getting involved, you have to say, why don't you come over for 3 or 4 hours and we'll do some calling together. I've done this with our groups, and this is fun. You sort of challenge each other. You sort of help each other. You have a big whiteboard. You write down how many calls you did, what kind of responses you're having. You know, are they willing to look at more information, or did they just flat out tell you no? We used to write all those statistics down, and we challenged each other to do that during that time. And you can fill up your calendar really quick by doing blitz calls, okay? The second 10 days, here's what it looks like. Focus on follow-ups. You got initial information into people's hands. They're taking a look at things, and you're doing maybe some follow-up three-ways with people. I still remember when Richard O'Brien talks about how many follow-up calls he got before he got involved. Folks, it might take 4, 5, 6 calls. Most of us give up on the second call. I hope you're seeing here that we need to let people that know, hey, you're valuable. I need you in my business. I'm excited for you to be in my business. So we have second exposures. We have people with questions and objections. We have to answer all those things. And if it's necessary, we need to get our upline partners on the phone with us to help them. So that's what, the second 10 days looks like. And then we're going to look at this last 10 days of the month. This is where, we've got a lot of people we're following up with, got a lot of people in the pipeline, and we're asking for the closing. We're asking, I like to ask on a scale of 1 to 10, a little earlier than the last 10 days, where are you? Are you a 1? Are you a 5? Are you an 8? Are you a 10? Where are you on what you've seen so far? Are you liking what you see? What questions do you have? What objections? Folks, how many times have you done a presentation with somebody and then they go home? What happens when they go home? They're beat up by their family. Oh, I was involved, or your third aunt was involved in one of those things, and then you can't get a hold of them. That's why we're always looking, for more people and making more calls, because we know that's what happens. People get beat up, so we do have to answer those objections. So get your upline on the phone to do that. I want to make a few closing comments here. We've gone on about 40 minutes or so. I hope you've written down how this would benefit you. If it's not going to benefit you, don't do it yet. But I want you to think about it today, tomorrow, over the week, and consider how this could change your life around. What would you rather do? 20 months? 20 and 20 months, or 20 and 30 days? It's up to you, and nobody else has control of this like you do. This is going to benefit you, your family, your children, if you have children at home, traveling the world, doing what you want to do, having financial freedom and time freedom. Carol and I have had that for over a decade now. We're looking to help other people come along and have that same success. Are you willing to make that commitment? Are you willing to change, get rid of distractions for 30 days? It's a huge commitment. I'm not saying it is. This is probably the hardest 30 days you'll ever work in your life. I can say that with all honesty. But if you push in and push through, make the calls, make the commitment, you're going to look back at the end of that 30 days and go, oh my gosh, I'm glad I did this. I'm glad I did this for my family, for everyone involved. It's about you making a decision to do this.